Today, I'm going to be looking in 1 Kings in just a moment, but I wanted to start by just telling you guys a little story about Eli and Ella, okay? Eli and Ella were an interesting pair. They were married at the age of 21 and 22, and they went to the fair every year, okay? They loved going to the state fair. And there was a guy there the first year that they went, and he was a pilot. He had a helicopter ride. And Eli wanted to go into the helicopter ride and take the tour and go over the city and everything. And so he said, Ella, let's do that. Let's go on this helicopter ride. And she said, Eli, it's $50. We're not going on no helicopter ride. Okay, but she said, Ella, please. And she said, Eli, $50 is $50. There's no helicopter ride happening. And so, no helicopter ride happened that year. Every year, Ella, can I go on the helicopter? $50 is $50. It's not happening. Every year. That's the way it works, right? Women, they run the household, okay? We like to think we do. Don't be under that deception, okay? So every year, but then finally, at age 87, Eli says, Ella, I don't know that I'm going to be here next year. Can we please do the helicopter ride? Well, this year, the guy running the helicopter ride, he's old too, right? Because he finally sees and he hears that Ella once again says, Eli, $50 is $50. It's not happening. And so the pilot says, hey, you know what, you guys, I will take you up for free if while we're up there, you don't say one word or make one sound, okay? I said, if you say one word or make one sound, you're paying me my $50 because $50 is $50, okay? And so they both get into the helicopter and they go up. And this pilot, man, he starts trying to do everything to get them to say something. He starts diving and he'd pull up and he'd go on the side. He did absolutely everything. And Eli and Ella just sitting there quiet. They're not saying a word, all right? And then finally, the pilot lands after many more tricks, after many more dives. He lands and he looks at Eli. He says, I cannot believe you did not say one word. You didn't make one sound that entire time. I can't believe it. How, why, how? And he said, well, you know what? I almost did when Ella fell out, but $50, but $50 is $50. Okay? So, just a ridiculous story, right? Ridiculous story, ridiculous situation. It's amazing in our society today how words can take on different meanings, though. Have you ever noticed that bad can be good and sick can be cool, but then ridiculous can be absurd, like that story, or it can be like unbelievable, amazing, like if you're given a cake, something. This cake is ridiculous. You ever heard something like that before? Like it's amazing, it's unbelievable, it's an unbelievable thing, right? Well, today, what I want to talk to you about is having a ridiculous commitment to things. Having a ridiculous commitment. And so what I want to look at is I'm going to look at a prophet in the Old Testament. His name was Elisha. And how he really demonstrates to us a ridiculous commitment. And this prophet, he was somebody who lived around the 9th century BC. And he was going to be trained and mentored by another prophet named Elijah. Okay? So we got an Eli theme going on today. All right. So Elijah was going to mentor Elisha. And Elijah, you got to understand him. He did many miracles. Okay. Like he called down fire out of heaven and it consumed an offering and burned up a lot of false prophets. He stopped rain. He started rain. So just some supernatural miracles Elijah did. Okay. But then he calls Elisha, and Elisha's somebody he's going to mentor. And he says, Elisha, you're going to have a double portion of everything that I have. So everything you've seen me do, you're going to do even more than that. And so this is Elisha stepping into this. He's coming to step into it. So he's living around the 9th century BC. He's at a time when the nation of Israel, who's God's chosen people, the nation of Israel is, and he's living at a time where he's going to be their voice, God's mouthpiece essentially to this nation. All right? But Elisha, some of the miracles he did because of his ridiculous commitment, he would Like there were some kids. Anybody bald in this room is going to appreciate this story, okay? There were some kids that were making fun of him one day, and he didn't like it, and so he called a bunch of bears out of the woods to kill the kids, okay? So he also divided the river Jordan. He would raise from the dead 3 different people, 2 of those while he's alive. The third one was somebody who was thrown in the tomb where he was buried, and that dead person touched his bones, and then they were raised from the dead. So Elisha did some amazing things. He purified some poisoned stew. He was working with some other men. The expensive axe head fell into a river. He caused that axe head to float. So Elisha, this is the kind of person that we're talking about. He did some absolutely phenomenal, amazing things, all right? And it was because of his ridiculous commitment. But here's the thing you got to understand about Elisha. He was just an ordinary, everyday guy. He wasn't a priest. He didn't come from anyone special. He didn't go to seminary. He wasn't a monk. He was just a normal, everyday guy who was faithful, who farmed, right? He was a farmer. But it's amazing how God uses ordinary, everyday people to do extraordinary things. He majors in it. That's what he does. Jesus tells us that when we're committed to him, he says, greater things you will do because I go to my Father. Okay? So he fills us with his Spirit and enables us to do things that super exceed our natural, right? So he majors in the extraordinary, and it takes us having a ridiculous commitment to him. But he does that so that we can lead people closer to him. That's the whole reason that he does it. That's the way that he uses us. But here's the thing. We've got to show that commitment all out to him, that I'm solely, wholly surrendered to him. And when we do, we step into a purpose, a destiny that he created for us that is so amazing, it's so fulfilling that we want nothing else but to serve him. Because that's what gives us life. That's what gives us energy. And so what I want to do is I'm going to look at 1 Kings chapter 19 today, and then verses 19 through 21 specifically. It says, so Elijah went from there and found Elisha, son of Shaphat. He was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, and he himself was driving the 12th pair. Elijah went to him and threw his cloak around him. Elisha then left his oxen and ran after Elijah. Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye, he said, and then I will come with you. Go back, Elijah replied. What have I done to you? So Elisha left him and went back. He took his yoke of oxen and slaughtered them. He burned the plowing equipment to cook the meat and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he set out to follow Elijah and became his servant. So Elisha, what's he doing? He's just plowing the field, right? He's standing behind the oxen. He's driving the 12th pair, it says. So he's doing this hard, boring, monotonous work. And you think about it, so he's got these oxen in front of him, right? So what's he looking at all day long? All day long. He's just looking at some oxen rears, right? And he's behind the oxen rears. So think about the smell that he's smelling all day long. He's getting caked up in the dirt and the mud. Hard, boring, monotonous work, right? And I think some of us have to understand that some of the things that we're doing right now, they may just seem hard, boring, and monotonous, like showing up to work, trying to meet my sales quota, trying to meet it that day, trying to meet it that week. Okay, I'm just going to get up. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to attend classes. I'm going to take the test. Hard, boring, monotonous. I'm going to get my kids up every day. I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to take them to school. I'm going to pick them up. I'm going to be their chauffeur, right? Just hard, boring, monotonous work. But see, it's the little things, right? And it's those little things that as we do and we show ourselves faithful that prepare us for something greater that God has in store for us. He says that if you're faithful with the little, then I'm going to give you much. And so that's what Elisha's doing. He's just being faithful. He's just showing his faithfulness. And he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do at this time in his life. I had a mentor of mine that is extremely successful. Extremely successful. And I asked him, what's the key to your success? He said, one word, faithfulness. He said, I'm just faithful. He said, I'm going to do what God's called me to do when he calls me to do it. And I continue to walk into the great things that God has for me. but I have to show myself and prove myself faithful. So Elisha, that's what he's doing. He's just plowing these fields day in and day out. And then all of a sudden, one day, one guy shows up. And in verse 19, finishing that up, Elijah went to him and threw his cloak around him. Now, what is that saying? It's a symbolic thing. So Elijah will take his cloak around and throw him out. And so what he's saying is that which has covered me is now going to cover you. The mantle that's been on me is now what's the mantle that's going to be you. That which I've been under, now you're going to be under. You're going to be my student. I'm going to be your mentor. The God that has done supernatural miracles through me, he's now going to do supernatural miracles through you. But you just got to follow me. You got to obey. You got to listen. Right? So there's two principles of ridiculous commitment. Number one is this. You don't have to understand fully to obey immediately. You don't have to understand fully to obey immediately. Verse 20 says, Elisha then left his oxen and ran after Elijah. Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye, he said, and then I will come with you. See, here's what Elisha, he didn't have to pray about it. Did he just say that? Yeah, he didn't have to pray about it, okay? He was like, I'm done looking at these butts all day, okay? I'm tired of this big butt in my face, okay? So he said, I'm going to follow Elisha, right? And so he didn't take time to pray about it. He didn't take time to weigh the pros and the cons. He didn't take time to find out the details and the salary. He didn't find out those things. He said, I'm going to obey right now because I know it's what God's calling me to do. So I'm going to obey immediately. God's been preparing me for this moment, and now he's showing up in my time to take me to that next level, to take me to a level that I maybe didn't understand before, because now this guy's telling me that I'm going to do more than he did. That's amazing. Okay, all I got to do is step out. I got to step out. I got to be committed. And so when he did that, now all of a sudden you're going to begin to see some supernatural things take place in Elisha's life, right? You know, many times people ask, Adam, what's your 3 to 5 year plan? And I have a loose one, all right? I do. It's like, okay, this is really, I want to see this happen. But it's not like so strategic and so set in stone that when God speaks to me, I can't pivot and go that direction, okay? So because for me, I can get that way where I'm so structured and I get so dogmatic that I'm like, this is what I'm going to accomplish within the next 6 months, within the next 3 years, within the 5. That when God shows up, I cannot move that direction because it doesn't make sense to my plan, right? And so I've got to be in a position where, yeah, I set goals. God says clearly, write the vision, make it plain, that those who see it may run with it. Yes, I do that. I write a vision down, pray, seek God. But then when God speaks to me, I can always move and respond immediately to what he's calling me to do. See, are you positioned in a place where you can respond immediately when God, and are you willing to? See, because you're not going to ever understand everything. God doesn't work that way. I wish he did. It would be absolutely amazing. But he doesn't, because if he did, what he would show us would overwhelm and scare us. So God's intentionally vague. All right? He's intentionally vague, and it's because when he's intentionally vague like this, it's going to demand faith and trust in him. It's going to demand faith and trust in him. And you know that, okay, God, I'm going to take this step, and I'm going to have faith that you're going to meet me the rest of the way. But what I got to demonstrate is I am wholly sold out, surrendered to you. That's what he expects. That's what he wants, right? And we see it all throughout Scripture. If you read your Bible, there's an Old Testament and a New Testament. There's different stories of different people. One of the stories is of Abraham, and he would actually become the father of the nation of Israel. And so all of his descendants, and what he grew up in this town called Ur. And it was the place where he was born, raised, his whole family was there. But God showed up to him one day and he said, I want you to go to a land that I showed you, that I'm gonna give to you and your descendants. That land would end up becoming what we know now as the nation of Israel. One word. That's it, just go. See, some of us, it may be just one word that God gives you. Some of you may be in a position right now where your marriage is rocky. It's looking bleak. And that word just may be stay. It may be stay. Some of you are in a position where maybe you or a loved one, you've gotten diagnosed with some kind of illness. You know, that one word may be trust. Some of you, you've been coming to this church for a long time now. You've been coming to this church for maybe years, maybe 6 months, maybe even just a month. You know what? That's long enough for God to tell you, commit. That's the one word, that commit. It's time to step up and start serving. It's time to get involved in groups. Commit is that one word. Maybe it's that desire that God's placed on the inside of you to grow your family. But you don't know how. You haven't been able to get pregnant. You don't want to get pregnant. But that word may just be foster or adopt. And you say, I don't know how. I don't know what to do. Do I, boy, girl, domestic, international? You know what? Just take the next step. Go talk to somebody that's done it. God's just wanting our obedience. We don't have to understand fully to obey immediately. Just one word that he may speak to you. All right? We've got to step out and be willing to obey. Some of you may be a single girl here and you're dating somebody, and that person, let's just say it, they're a loser, a jerk, and a punk. All right? They don't pay for dinner, they don't pay for lunch, they don't open your door, they don't sing to you. Okay? Some of y'all are like, my husband doesn't sing to me. Never sung to me in my life. I don't want to hear him sing to me. But God may give you 5 words. Break up with the jerk. Okay? And it's because he loves you so much. You're his princess. He values you. He cares that much for you. Right? You need somebody that's going to treat you like a queen that you are. That's going to love you and cherish you and put you first. So he may give you one word. The second thing is this. So number 1 is you don't have to understand completely to obey immediately. Number 2 is this, that those God uses the most are the ones who hold on to the least. Those God uses the most are the ones who hold on to the least. Verse 21, so Elisha left him and went back. He took his yoke of oxen and slaughtered them. He burned the plowing equipment to cook the meat and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he set out to follow Elijah and became his servant. So Elisha did something that was perfectly normal. He slaughtered the oxen. He offered a sacrifice. They did that to show that they were celebrating what God had done. They honored God. And so that was perfectly normal. But he did something too that took an extra step. He went and got the equipment that was his work, right? That he had to have the tools in order to be successful in his work. And he used those to burn, to start the fire so that he could create the sacrifice. Okay? So what Elisha's doing here is he's like pushing all the chips to the center of the table. He said, I'm going all in. I'm not going 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I'm not straddling the fence. He says, you know what? I'm not going to look back anymore. That's what that is. He said, I'm not going to look back. I'm going to move forward into the new things and the better things that God has for me, because it's better, because my latter days will be greater than my former days. Okay? So the best is yet to come. But for me to experience that best, I can't be 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I got to go all in. Okay? That's the only way that it works. Because that's where I showed that, you know what? I got complete faith and trust in my God, that he's big enough to meet all my needs, to do everything that needs to be done in my life, for me to fulfill the purpose and the plan that he has. So I'm taking away any option of going back. I'm eliminating those options and showing that I am wholly surrendered and committed to the call of God on my life. See, some of us, but we're in a place where we're like, I don't understand. I don't understand. How do I let that go? You know what? We have to get to the place where we say, you know what? I'm going to be willing to sever and sacrifice even when I don't understand, and let go so that I can move on. All right? There's 2 things in life that we will never understand completely. Where did the sock go and what do women want? Okay? But some of us can't even let go of the extra sock. Who's that person? Man, I got a sock full, I got a drawer of those things. I'm like, it's going to show up. I'm going to find that thing. We got to let it go because we've heard God speak that one word, or we've felt that pull, right? Or we've read what his will is. And it's time for us to let go and move on into the next season that God has for us, okay? And to let go maybe of that which we thought we would do or know into the place that may be a little uncomfortable. You know, I've got a friend, Jason, and this story, it's still, because we have to understand this. What God tells us to do, other people won't understand, okay? And I had a friend, Jason, he did something I still am very perplexed on. He grew up wanting to be a doctor. His parents are both doctors. They started this amazing urgent care in Tulsa. And so the plan was to be a doctor, work there, one day take over the urgent care. So he went, studied biology in college, went to med school, did residency, the whole deal, everything. Then he says, Adam, like, I just feel like this uneasiness, he said, like, I just don't feel good about doing this. I don't really want to do it. Some of you are in that place. You're just like, this stirring's happening on the inside of you. Not necessarily an audible voice, but it's just this, that peace is not really there. And so Jason said, I don't want to do this. But man, this school, there's an opening to be a soccer coach. And I think I want to apply and go do that. And I was like, pay scale here. What are we looking at? You know? And he applied to that. He got it, soccer coach. All the degrees, everything he had studied and done. He just left them back. And he's like, man, I'm more fulfilled. I love this. I love pouring into the teenagers. I love counseling them and helping them. He said, now I'm overseeing a Bible school. See, God has promoted him and elevated him in that place, but it was because he followed the voice of God. See, God can speak to us many different ways. It may be that stirring. He may give you an audible voice. I know he's speaking to some of you right now as I'm ministering here today. He's going to speak to you through his word as we get into his word and read it. We just got to obey when he does. And then when we do, what we will do is we will see him elevate and promote us in life in ways that we didn't think would happen or that don't make sense. I've got another friend, Tony, that, you know, he was at a job. He's been offered this position. He said, you know, okay, you're going to get this raise, this promotion. You just got to relocate. The thing was, he loved his church. And he said, you know what? Because I love my church, I don't feel like we're supposed to go. And he said, we're not going to go. But you know what? He didn't get that raise and promotion, but where he's at now, he's gotten raised. He said, I'm better off financially than I've ever been in my life. Doesn't make sense to me. Didn't make sense probably to a lot of you. But man, he just obeyed. I want to tell you something else. You know, one of my mentors in life now, he was somebody that, he was in ministry and he had a terrible falling out, and, you know, it was a terrible situation anyway. But he was addicted to pornography too. And, you know, one of the things that he did, he said, you know what, Adam, I got rid of my computers. I got rid of my tablets. I got rid of my smartphones. He said, I went and got a little cheap flip phone where all I could do was text and receive an email and make phone calls. So I couldn't get online or anything. People would look at, what are you talking about? You've got to be able to do. He said, no. It was how I was going to step away and experience freedom that God had for me. And he is free now. He has a ministry to people that revolves around purity and holiness. He's been free now for over a decade. I mean, it's amazing what God's done, but he had to make the sacrifice that was necessary in order to step into that next season that God had for him. Okay? Some of you, what God's telling you to do or what he shows you to do, it doesn't make sense. Other people may look at you, they may scoff, they may laugh, but you know what? You got to do it. You got to do it. It may not make sense to you, it may not make sense to other people, but you step out and you follow, and then you step towards that destiny that God has for you. But it's always going to demand that we leave that place of security. every time. You know, I've got 3 kids, Arden, Tova, and Ziva. And so I've got a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 12-year-old. And each one of them had something that they're hanging on to. Tova had a blanket. She called her Lovey. Ziva had a cup. Arden, now if you see him walking around, you'll see him with Simba, Mickey, and Chase. And he's carrying them around. So this joker's got 3, okay? And so he's going to carry these things around. But you know what? In order for them to step into the next season of their life, they're going to have to let go of that which they felt has given them so much security up to this point, and be willing to sever and sacrifice that. You see, some of you are in that place right now where God has shown you what it's time to sacrifice and what it's time to let go of. But because you haven't understood why, you haven't done it yet. And God's saying it's time to obey. It may just be one word. Maybe it's been obvious and evident because it's such a deep stirring on the inside of you. But it's time to step into that next season, because it's in that next season where you're going to find true, full fulfillment and peace and joy, satisfaction. You see, the reason that The Purpose-Driven Life is the #1 selling book of all time is because people are searching for a purpose. But you never walk into your purpose if you don't wholly surrender to Him. If you continue to hang on to the past and not let go of it and really turn to follow Him, you never experience and walk in that destiny and purpose that He has for your life. Jesus says this in Luke 9:62. He says it this way, that no one puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. You weren't meant to stare at oxen rears all day. Okay? You were meant for something greater than that. And yes, it will demand a step of faith. And we have to understand that that step of faith is always a step into a place of uncertainty. But it's in that place where God meets us, because we've shown our full, all-out commitment to Him. Let me pray for you today. Jesus, I just thank you. Thank you for your love, for your mercy, for your grace. I thank you that you are for us, and if you are for us, who can be against us? Jesus, that you gave your life for us, that we might live and have life in you, that we might fulfill a purpose and a destiny that's so far beyond us that we can't accomplish it in our natural, but you team up with us and super exceed that. But we have to step in and obey. But God, I just thank you that as we obey, you use us in amazing ways to make an amazing impact in this world. If you're here today and you say, Adam, you know what? I haven't made that commitment to Him. That's where it starts. It starts with us saying, God, I'm going to wholly surrender everything to you. You see, Jesus loved us enough to pay the price where He would be murdered, that He would be sacrificed. He would take our sin and our shame, our sicknesses and disease upon Himself on the cross. But then He would be raised from the dead. And He said that you will find life in me when you surrender to me, because I will give you forgiveness of sins, and you will enter into a relationship with me, and I will fill you with my Spirit, and you will walk in the purpose and destiny that I have for your life. See, but we've got to be willing to sever and sacrifice those things that we've been holding on to and fully commit our lives to Him. If you're here today and you say, Adam, you know what? I feel far from God today. I feel far from Him. I need to get my life right. I'm ready to let go of the things I've been holding on to and step into what He has for me. I want to get my life right with Him today. I just want you to raise your hand just right where you are. I want to pray with you. Believe God with you. Anyone here? Yeah. Everybody just repeat after me. Just say, Jesus, forgive me of my sins. I believe in you. Fill me with your Spirit. I'm going to live my life for you. In Jesus' name, amen. Come on, church, y'all give it up for Jesus.